Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. Pebble hit the end of the room at a run and stopped so hard his forepaws squealed against the black floor. The sound made 3 assessors behind the glass flinch. Lena Quill did not. She was too busy watching where the cub was looking, not at her. Not at Registrar Murray Dawn, who stood beside the wall console with one hand lifted for the restraint team to wait, not at the 2 academy attendants near the family door. Pebble stared at the wall. His cheek fans flattened until the pale edges nearly vanished into the charcoal silver fur along his jaw. He backed 2 steps, swung his broad head, and found another wall. His chest rumbled. The sound was low enough that Lena felt it through the soles of her shoes. "Custody adult. Hold position," Murray said. Lena held position. That part was easy. She had no interest in getting closer to a juvenile Thalenry who currently looked large enough to rearrange the furniture by accident. Pebble took 1 sideways step. The black wall took 1 with him. He jerked. Lena frowned. The assessment room had been designed to make observation unobtrusive. 3 walls were dark reflective panels, polished nearly to mirrors from the inside and transparent from the staff side. Human trainees usually complained that the room made them feel watched. Thalenry adults had passed through it for years without trouble. Pebble was not an adult. He swung again. Another enormous juvenile appeared to swing with him. "Oh," Lena said. Murray's gaze cut toward her. "Explain. He's not tracking us." Pebble scraped backward. His rump bumped the low bench. He spun toward the movement in the wall and gave a sharp warning bark. The restraint screen team moved. Lena saw the screen unfold from the ceiling rail. "No." The word left her before she had time to make it polite. Murray's expression hardened. "Quill, he's seeing himself." "Step away from the juvenile." "I am away from the juvenile." "Then remain so." Pebble lunged 3 feet toward the nearest black panel and stopped, shoulders rigid, staring at the animal that had lunged at him. Lena tore the scarf from around her neck. It was an ugly thing. Gray-green earth wool, soft from years of washing, with a tiny blue and white planet stitched into one corner by Lena's older sister. She had worn it through 3 orbital winters and 1 disastrous date with an airlock heater that had chosen retirement at exactly the wrong moment. She threw it over the lower half of the nearest reflective panel. The false Thalenry disappeared. Pebble froze, his head tilted. The rumble changed pitch. Murray said, "Do not alter the assessment environment. Little late for that." Quill Lena grabbed 2 privacy cloths from the bench, kept her body turned sideways and slid one across the floor with her foot. She did not advance. She did not reach toward Pebble. She draped the 2nd cloth over the edge of the opposite panel from where she stood. Half another false animal vanished. Pebble looked from the covered patch to the uncovered black glass. His ears lifted a fraction. "Dim panel 3, Lena said. "No," Miret replied. The ceiling restraint screen dropped 6 inches. Pebble's cheek fans snapped flat again. Lena's stomach tightened. "Registrar, if you lower that, you'll put a wall above him while he thinks 3 strangers are crowding him. That is speculation." "Yes." "So is calling this aggression." Pebble's paws spread. The screen dropped another inch. Lena did the only thing she could think of that did not require touching the cub. She sat on the floor. Every human in the room looked at her. Pebble did too. For 1 second he looked directly at Lena rather than the wall. She kept her hands on her knees. "You're not getting any smarter by standing there, Pebble," she said quietly. "Neither am I, apparently." His ears twitched. Then his gaze snapped back to the uncovered panel. Lena pointed without lifting her arm high. "Look where he looks." Miret did. Pebble shifted left. The reflected juvenile shifted left. He shifted right. It followed. The cub's warning sound rose only when the image met him. Miret's hand moved to the console. Panel 3 faded from polished black to dull gray. The animal in it disappeared. Pebble stopped rumbling. Not gradually. Not after reassurance. The sound simply ended. His shoulders loosened. One huge forepaw curled inward, then the other. The restraint screen stopped descending. For a long moment nobody moved. Pebble lowered his head and sniffed the edge of Lena's scarf where it lay against the wall. He did not approach Lena. He did not nuzzle her. He did not perform any convenient miracle for the assessors. He sneezed on the scarf. Lena closed her eyes. Of course you did. A sound came from behind the family door. One low Thillenry call. Pebble's entire body changed. He turned at once. The family door opened and Senna Verse stepped through. She was taller than Lena by nearly a head and twice as wide through the shoulders. Her fur carried the same charcoal silver color as Pebble's, though the cheek fans along her face were broader and marked by thin pale lines. She took one look at the room, one look at her son, and lowered herself. Pebble crossed the floor to her without hesitation. He pressed his muzzle beneath her jaw. Senna folded one foreleg over his shoulders. Lena felt the room exhale. Threat gone. Not defeated, not dominated. Gone. Meret let the silence hold for several seconds before she said, "Assessment invalid." Lena looked up from the floor. Meret's tone was formal again. Standardized environment altered by designated custody adult before completion of the response cycle. Result cannot be compared to certification baseline. That seems fair. Several people stared at Lena. She shrugged. It does. Meret had clearly expected an argument. Lena pushed herself to her feet, keeping distance from Senna and Pebble. Her custody badge hung from the front of her dark academy overshirt. It was a narrow polymer rectangle marked with her name, residence clearance, and a green crescent that meant she was authorized to take limited responsibility for juveniles during supervised evening rotations. Not ownership, not adoption, not even full handler status. Mostly it meant she could be the adult officially accountable when a cub needed someone to make sure doors stayed open, meals went to the correct room, and nobody decided that probably asleep counted as a safety check. Meret looked at the badge. Lena's humor evaporated. Pending review, Meret said. Your supervised cub custody credential is revoked. Senna lifted her head. Lena did not. She had changed a controlled assessment. She had done it because the alternative had looked worse, but she had still changed it. How long? Until the review determines whether your intervention concealed an unsafe fixation response. Lena finally looked at Meret. Fixation on what? That remains under review. Convenient. Quill. Sorry. Meret stepped forward and held out her hand. Lena unclipped the badge. The little green crescent had been hard-earned. 3 months of night classes, family boundary training, emergency procedure, juvenile nutrition, environmental checks, and enough paperwork to make Lena suspect the academy reproduced by forms. She put it in Meret's palm. Meret touched the side of the badge to her wrist terminal. The green crescent went dark. That hurt more than Lena expected. She covered it with a joke because jokes were cheaper than dignity. Well, my evening just opened up. Meret placed the deactivated badge in the low collection tray beside the wall console. Your residence wing access is suspended effective immediately. Report to North Supply at 2000 hours. Compensation will revert to base night rate until review. There it was. Not just pride. The rotation stipend paid for Lena's off-station transit pass and most of the small apartment she rented above the Academy's east service ring. Understood, she said. Pebble shifted beside Senna. Lena saw it at the edge of her vision and deliberately did not turn. She would not make this into a performance. She would not call him. She would not say his name. She would not reach for sympathy from a cub whose entire stressful morning had started because adults wanted to know whether he behaved correctly in a room full of fake predators. Meret continued discussing documentation with an assessor. Senna remained with Pebble near the family door. Lena bent to retrieve her scarf. A broad silver paw stepped onto it. She stopped. Pebble had left Senna. He was not coming toward Lena. He was crossing toward the collection tray. The room went quiet again. Do not cue him, Meret said softly. I'm not. Pebble sniffed the tray. The deactivated badge lay between a stylus and a sealed test strip. He nosed the stylus away. Then he took Lena's badge gently between his front teeth. Lena stayed standing. Pebble turned. He walked toward her. Every observer watched. Lena felt a ridiculous urge to back away, not because she feared him, but because she knew exactly what the room wanted. Meaning. Proof. A clean answer. Pebble stopped in front of her. Then he looked down. Lena was still standing. He huffed. She glanced at Senna. The adult Thelenri's cheek fans had relaxed. She gave no command. Lena slowly lowered herself back onto the bench. Pebble stepped close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. He set the badge squarely in her lap. Not in her hand. Not at her feet, in her lap. His nose lingered for half a second against the dead green crescent. Then he turned around and went straight back to his mother. Senna lowered her head. Pebble tucked himself against her foreleg as if the room had become boring. Nobody spoke. Lena looked at the badge on her knees. Mireille looked at Pebble. One of the assessors whispered. He returned the custody marker. Lena's head came up. No. The assessor blinked. He returned a thing he's seen on me every night for 6 weeks, Lena said. That does not mean he understands your credential system. Mireille studied her. Lena picked up the badge. It means he carried a familiar object. Maybe to a familiar person. That's all we know. Pebble yawned against Senna's leg. Lena looked at him. The cub had already moved on. For some reason that made the gesture matter more. Mireille closed the collection tray anyway. Then our problem, she said, is finding out what he actually meant. Lena wished paperwork could bite. North Supply had no cubs, no reflective walls, and no one who cared where Lena sat. By the third night, she had discovered the hidden advantage of professional disgrace. Boxes were remarkably uninterested in explaining her motives. She counted sealed meal packs, logged thermal blankets, checked door seals, and tried not to calculate how much money she was losing. The answer was enough. Her custody rotation stipend had covered the monthly transit pass into the station's residential ring. Base night rate did not. If the review lasted more than 2 weeks, Lena would have to give up one of 2 luxuries, the transit pass or food that came in forms more ambitious than noodles. She was still considering the moral weight of vegetables when a Thelenri family crossed the far end of the supply corridor. Senna came first. 2 smaller juveniles followed her. Pebble came last. Lena's hands stopped over a crate count. Pebble looked toward the desk. Then he looked at a rolling cart. The cart had a loose wheel. It rattled once. Pebble abandoned all interest in Lena and followed the cart with the focused seriousness of a scientist discovering a new element. Lena smiled despite herself. Devastating, she murmured. I've been replaced by bad maintenance. The supply clerk beside her glanced over. What? Nothing. Pebble batted the rolling wheel once before Senna touched his shoulder with her muzzle and redirected him toward the family lift. He went with her immediately. No reluctance. No backward look. Lena entered 12 thermal wraps in inventory and felt strangely relieved. The Academy's working incident note did not use the word relief. It used fixation. Registrar Mireille had sent Lena a copy because she was the affected employee. Possible human-directed fixation following unauthorized environmental modification. The sentence had annoyed her for several reasons, but the largest was that it sounded so certain while saying almost nothing. Pebble had returned her badge. He had also ignored her for a bad wheel. Both were facts. The Academy seemed interested only in the first. On the 5th night, Senna stopped at the supply desk. Pebble was not with her. Lena stood automatically. You don't have to, Senna said through the translator pinned at her collar. Sorry, habit. Human Academy habit? Human being caught sitting by Samune taller than me habit. Senna's cheek fans opened slightly. Lena had learned that this was often the Thelenri version of amusement, though the family guides warned humans not to assume every facial spread meant the same thing. Senna set a folded paper on the desk. Actual paper. Lena picked it up. It was a family observation sheet. Regislar requests ordinary behavior, Senna said. From you? From all who know him. Lena scanned the notes. Pebble sleeps on left side when tired. Steals smooth stones. Dislikes doors closing behind him. Follows younger sibling when sibling cries. Chases reflected food bowl in polished metal. Lena stopped. She looked at Senna. Reflected food bowl, since small. He chases the reflection. He tries to take it. Lena imagined a much smaller Pebble fighting a duplicate dinner. The image nearly made her laugh.
Do adult Thelenri understand mirrors? Yes, cubs. Senna considered. Eventually, that is not the same answer. No. Lena sat back. Senna watched her face. You think room mattered? I think I covered one wall and he stopped reacting to that wall.
Then another panel dimmed and the rest stopped. That's not proof of why. Regislar says same. Regislar and I are having an unpleasant amount of agreement lately. Senna's cheek fans widened again. Lena tapped the observation sheet. Why would a reflection look like a challenge? Senna placed one broad hand on the counter, claws retracted. Young learn direction before words. Face toward means attention. Shoulders square means claim space. Moving same direction at same moment, she paused while the translator searched. Impossible agreement. An animal that never yields. Yes, and if Pebble yields? Other yields same amount, Lena grimaced. That is awful. For juvenile, perhaps? Why hasn't it caused trouble before? Most family rooms mat. Lena thought of the North residence halls, warm textured walls, soft composite floors, privacy curtains, no full-height dark glass. Assessment rooms had been built for observation. Adults passed through them. Human trainees passed through them. No one had asked whether the room might behave differently to a juvenile whose social reading depended on orientation. Lena looked down the corridor where Pebble had disappeared days earlier. You know, they're considering restricting him to one handler. Senna's cheek fans drew inward. Yes, I'm sorry. You did not propose. I'm still involved. Senna leaned slightly closer. You are removed. Thank you for the encouraging phrasing. The translator rendered Senna's answering sound as amusement, which was somehow funnier than the sound itself. Then Senna became serious. Regislar asks if Pebble is attached to you. Lena folded the observation sheet. What did you say? That he knows you? Not the same thing, no, that he returned my badge. Yes. Lena stared at the dead terminal beside her inventory list. He went back to you. He did. Before and after. Yes. That should matter more than the badge. Senna's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Lena pushed the paper back across the counter. If the Academy asks whether he chooses me over family, the answer is no. You answer quickly, because it would be a terrible question. Senna picked up the sheet. Why? Because if you put a kid between two people he trusts and force him to prove which one matters more, you haven't learned anything useful. You've just made the kid solve an adult problem. Senna stood very still. Lena wished she had phrased it with fewer words. Then Senna touched 2 fingers briefly to the paper and left. That conversation entered the review record the next morning. So did Lena's complaint about the phrase human-directed fixation. Murray summoned her to a small office overlooking the family courtyard. No cubs were present. That was deliberate. Your objection is noted, Murray said. I feel powerful already.
Quill, sorry.
Merritt slid the incident file across the desk. Your access suspension remains. Lena did not touch the file. I assumed. The review team agrees the reflective surface may have contributed to the initial escalation. Good. That does not explain the badge. No. Or why the juvenile crossed away from his mother to return it. No. Mary watched her carefully. You do not seem eager to use that point. Lena's mouth tightened. Regislar, I spent 3 months learning that Thalenry family bonds are not optional scenery around academy programs. Pebble carried one familiar thing to one familiar person. If I turn that into he picked me, I learned the wrong lesson. Murray rested her hands on the file. The concern is not sentimental. I know. If Pebble's regulation now depends on your presence, we need to know. Then watch him when I'm not there. We do? And he is generally stable. Lena waited. Merrick continued. His attention increases near polished doors, observation partitions, and some transport surfaces. Some? Not all. So we need better data. Yes. Lena sighed. This is getting upsettingly reasonable. Merritt ignored that. The Academy is considering a temporary single-hander restriction until the distinction between environmental trigger and social fixation is clearer. Lena straightened. Who's handler? Certified staff. Not me. Your credential is revoked, right? Then what does single-hander solve? It reduces variables. It also gives Pebble one human root and fewer family space transitions. If he comes, you won't know whether that happened because of the handler, the root, or fewer bad surfaces. Mirette's eyebrows lifted slightly. Lena regretted speaking like someone who wanted homework. Mirette turned her terminal. A map of North residence appeared. Several incident markers glowed. "Show me," Mirette said. Lena looked. Most markers clustered near junctions. 2 beside old black glass fire doors. 1 at a polished lift surround, 1 near a bright steel serving hatch. 1 in the family courtyard, nowhere near anything reflective. "There," Lena said, pointing to the courtyard mark. "That one breaks it." Mirette nodded. Pebble barked and moved aggressively toward another juvenile. Actual juvenile. "Yes, then that one should stay in the threat file. You see why I will not reduce this to mirrors. Yes, and why I will not reduce the badge to affection. Yes." Lena leaned over the map. What happened after the courtyard bark? The smaller juvenile stole a stone Pebble had been carrying. Lena looked up. Mirette's mouth twitched. Family described the matter as resolved. Did Pebble get the stone back? No. That poor child. Mirette closed the map. The single-hander proposal remains under review. So does your credential. Lena stood. "Fine, Quill." She paused. Mirette's expression had lost some of its official hardness. "Your stipend loss is recorded as a material employment consequence. If the review clears your intervention, back pay is possible." Possible is a dangerous word. It is the correct word. Of course it is. That evening, Lena took the long way back to North Supply so she would not pass the family gallery. She told herself it was professional discipline. It was also easier. At 22:30, a younger attendant delivered a stack of family movement sheets to the desk. Lena sorted them. Pebble's name appeared twice. North mat corridor. Calm. Family dining room, asleep beneath Senna's bench. No mention of Lena. She placed both sheets in the completed tray. A small private part of her had wanted some dramatic proof that Pebble missed her. The larger part was glad he did not need to. 2 nights later, she saw him again. Senna and the juveniles crossed the open gallery above North Supply. Pebble had a smooth white stone in his mouth. He stopped at the railing. Lena looked up. His ears lifted. She did nothing. Pebble dropped the stone. It bounced once, rolled beneath his own paw, and he pounced on it with such enthusiasm that one of his siblings crashed into his side. The 2 cubs wrestled for 3 seconds. Senna nudged them apart. They followed her away. Lena returned to inventory. Beside the door, the polished metal edge of a newly installed cabinet caught her reflection. She looked at it, then at the gallery where Pebble had vanished. On her terminal, she opened a blank maintenance note. Not a behavioral report, not a custody appeal. A maintenance note. Full head reflective surfaces in juvenile roots. Request location survey. She hesitated over the submit button, then pressed it. If the Academy wanted variables, she could at least help them count the right ones. This time, carefully. The maintenance survey made Lena unpopular in 3 departments before breakfast. Facilities disliked the implication that walls could have opinions. Assessment services disliked the implication that its rooms could create behavior instead of merely observing it. North Supply disliked that Lena had submitted the request from their terminal, because this apparently made North Supply the originating unit, which sounded impressive until the forms began arriving. By the end of the week, Lena had acquired a folder titled Reflective Surface Review and the conviction that bureaucracy was nature's way of punishing curiosity. She was labeling thermal canisters when Mirette appeared at the supply desk. "You opened a facilities review. I requested a location survey. You opened a facilities review. Apparently the button was ambitious." Mirette set a tablet on the counter. Rook glass has 83 full-height or partial reflective surfaces inside juvenile accessible areas. Lena blinked. "That many? Most are harmless. Good." 16 correlate with elevated orientation notes from Thaylenry juveniles over the last 4 terms. Lena stopped smiling. Elevated orientation means headlock, squared shoulders, warning vocalization, root refusal, or repeated visual checking. Threat codes. Some? How many? 11. Lena looked toward the dark cabinet edge beside the supply door. Someone had covered it with temporary matte tape after her request. Does Senna know? Yes. Does she think mirrors explain all 11? No. That helped. Lena did not want a miracle answer. She wanted a correct one. Murray swiped the tablet. Your intervention is still under review. I assumed the part where you came down here personally did not mean congratulations. The single-hander restriction proposal for Pebble is scheduled tomorrow. Lena's hand tightened around the marker she was holding. You still want it? I want a defensible plan. That wasn't my question. No. Lena set the marker down. Merrick continued, the family objects to any arrangement that reduces normal movement solely to make interpretation easier. Good. The Academy has proposed a controlled preference observation instead. Lena knew from Mara's face she was not going to like the next sentence. What kind? Pebble would enter the family gallery with Senna. You would stand at one open route, a certified handler would stand at another. No food, no commands. We record his route. Lena stared at her. No. Your participation could accelerate your credential review. No. Quill, nothing requires physical contact. That's not the problem. Then explain. Lena stepped out from behind the desk. If Pebble walks to Senna, you learn he likes his mother. Stunning result. If he walks to me, someone writes that he has fixation. If he walks to the handler, someone writes that training works. You're asking a child to make one walk carry 3 adult theories. The observation is voluntary. The walking is voluntary. The meaning we plan to dump on it isn't. Mire's jaw set. You are declining. Yes, you understand your credential may remain suspended longer? Yes, your stipend as well. Lena looked at the thermal canisters stacked behind her. She had eaten noodles for 4 consecutive dinners. Yes? Mire picked up the tablet. Very well, she left without threatening Lena, which somehow made the decision feel more expensive. That night, Lena canceled her monthly residential transit pass. The Academy provided employee bunks in the service ring. They were free, narrow, and designed by someone who had clearly believed mattresses were a sign of moral weakness. She moved into one with 2 uniforms, 3 shirts, a kettle, and the faded wool scarf. Her apartment key went into the back of her locker until she decided whether she could keep paying for it. No one made a speech about the sacrifice. Pebble did not know it had happened. That was the point. The next few days became aggressively ordinary. Lena worked supply. Facilities measured surface reflectivity. Family staff added orientation direction to observation sheets. Senna sent notes. Pebble stole another stone. One smaller cub developed an obsession with a mop bucket and had to be prevented from climbing inside. The Academy did not collapse because Lena lacked a green crescent on her badge. Then Rookglass made the most useful decision it had made yet. Mire ordered Lena removed from every juvenile observation route for 48 hours, not punished. Removed as a variable. Lena approved immediately. She spent the first night in basement inventory, counting emergency filters that had apparently survived 3 different accounting systems and 1 minor station renovation. The second night she repaired labels on old bedding lockers. At 0310, she found a forgotten packet of coffee in a disaster supply crate and briefly considered it evidence that the universe loved her. At 0312, Murray called. North connecting vestibule, she said. Lena looked at the clock. I'm excluded from juvenile routes. You remain excluded. Come to observation 3. That room overlooked the old connecting vestibule from above. Lena arrived to find Murray, a family liaison, 2 safety assessors, and 1 facilities engineer staring at recorded footage. Senna was on the screen. No Lena. No familiar badge. No custody shift. No choice test. Senna and 4 juveniles had been moving from the family exercise court toward North residence after a late medical equipment inspection delayed the usual route. The normal corridor had been closed for cleaning. Staff redirected them through the older vestibule. Its west wall was black observation glass. Senna entered first. She took 2 steps, stopped. Her cheek fans narrowed, her shoulders squared. The juveniles behind her immediately bunched together. Senna shifted right, the reflected adult shifted right, she shifted left, the other adult matched her. Then Senna gave one hard warning bark and placed herself between the glass and the cubs. Lena felt the hairs rise along her arms. It was not identical to Pebble's response. Senna was older, controlled, protective, but the direction was the same, always the glass. "Play it again," Lena said. Mired did. Senna entered, stopped, oriented, moved to cover the juveniles. No one on the recording approached her. No one threatened her. The facility's engineer spoke first. Could be unfamiliar root stress. Yes, Murray said. Could be concern over the cleaning barriers. Yes. Could be the glass. Yes, Lena looked at Murray. The registrar's face revealed nothing. "Where was I?" Lena asked. "Basement 4. Pebble?" Asleep in Residence 12. He was not present. That mattered too. The Academy's working theory had been that Pebble's room behavior might involve Lena-specific fixation. Now his mother had produced a related orientation response with neither of them present. Not proof, but enough to damage the easy explanation. "What happened next?" Lena asked. Murray resumed the footage. A staff member lowered the vestibule's privacy shade. The reflection disappeared. Senna's shoulders remained rigid for several seconds. Then her cheek fans opened. She checked each juvenile. The group continued. The engineer rubbed his mouth. "We need that passage closed until we test it." Murray nodded. "Already done," one assessor said. "This may affect the fixation classification." "May," Murray replied. Lena nearly laughed. Murray heard it. "Correct language remains correct even when inconvenient." "I know." The registrar paused the image at the moment Senna stood between the reflected wall and her cubs. "Quill, you will not discuss this outside the review group until Family Services approves disclosure?" "Fine." "You will not contact Senna for interpretation?" "Fine." "You will not contact Pebble. I'm in a basement counting filters." "Good." Lena leaned toward the screen. "Regislar?" "Yes, look where she looks." Murray's eyes shifted to the reflected adult. For the first time since the assessment, she did not answer immediately. The next morning, the single-hanger proposal was suspended, not cancelled, suspended. The 48-hour exclusion became 72 while the Academy widened the review. Lena stayed in basement inventory. Her temporary bunk remained her home. Her old apartment sent an automated notice about the next rent cycle. She deleted it without opening the payment page. On the 3rd day, a family liaison delivered a sealed note from Senna. Lena almost refused it. "It's cleared," the liaison said. The note contained 7 words in translation. "Not every shape facing US is family." Below that, Senna had pressed one charcoal silver thumb pad into the signing field. Lena read it twice, then she tucked it into the review folder rather than her pocket. Evidence belonged with evidence. By the time Mireille called the formal hearing, the easy story was gone. The badge no longer sat at the center, neither did Lena. The question had become bigger and much less flattering to the Academy. How many times had Rookglass recorded a frightened juvenile as dangerous because it had never bothered to ask what the juvenile thought was standing in front of him? Mireille opened the hearing with no apology. She opened it with footage. Lena respected that more. The review chamber held no juveniles, and after one pointed facility's recommendation, no reflective wall large enough to show anyone below the waist. Lena noticed the change immediately. She said nothing. Maret called up 12 incident clips. Some were obvious non-matches, a cub snapping at a sibling over food, a juvenile refusing a medic after a painful procedure. One adolescent trying to climb a decorative support and objecting loudly when gravity won. Those stayed exactly where they belonged. Others were harder. A cub backing from a polished lift door while its reflection backed at the same speed. 2 siblings barking at a black divider after lights changed. Pebble squaring toward assessment glass. Senna shielding her young in the old vestibule. The pattern did not erase danger. It narrowed the question. That distinction mattered to Lena. One assessor tried to summarize the evidence as reflection-induced harmless behavior. Murrah stopped him. No, A frightened Thalenri remains physically capable of causing harm. We are not replacing one lazy category with another. Lena looked at her. Mira continued, the error under review is whether we classified target and cause with sufficient precision before escalating control. That was the first sentence Lena had heard all week that felt like a door opening. Facilities presented surface maps. Family services presented orientation notes. Senna's liaison explained juvenile challenge cues. Then Lena was asked one question. Why did you cover the glass? She could have made herself sound wise. Instead, she said, because he stopped yelling at the part I covered. A few mouths twitched. Mireille did not, but she wrote it down. The hearing adjourned before any ruling. No badge returned. No credential restored. No one declared Lena right. The old classification remained open, visibly weakened. That was worse for certainty. It was much better for Pebble. For once, the ruling began with a sentence Lena did not expect. Your intervention was procedurally unauthorized and physically appropriate. She looked at Mireille across the review table. That sounds like two departments lost in argument. It means both facts are true. Less exciting. Mireille slid a revised incident summary toward her. The Academy had not cleared every Thalenri threat record. It had not decided reflections were harmless. It had not declared Lena uniquely gifted. Instead, it had changed the question staff were required to answer before escalating from observation to control. What is the juvenile oriented toward? The new field looked almost insultingly simple. Tacit, divided by direction obspersian family condense. Lena read it twice. Pebble's fixation code, she asked. Removed? Single-hander restriction. Cancelled. My credential? Mireille folded her hands. Not yet restored. Lena stared at her. Registrar, your assessment intervention remains incomplete. We also need to determine whether future custody work with Pebble specifically would create an exclusivity problem. No, Merritt blinked. No what? No Pebble-specific custody assignment. That was not an offer. Good. Then we agree faster. Merritt's expression sharpened. He may even like me. That is not disputed. He also sleeps with Senna, follows Senna, leaves when Senna leaves, steals things from his siblings, ignores me when a wheel rattles. Explain. Lena leaned back. This whole review started because everyone keeps trying to turn one weird moment into a permanent relationship category. He returned my badge. Fine. He knows me. Fine. And apparently considers White Rocks a matter of national security. Mireille's mouth moved despite herself. Lena continued, if I get my general rotation credential back, I'll work whatever family schedule assigns me. But I don't want Pebble assigned to me as proof that the badge meant something. The family door opened behind her. Lena turned. Senna entered alone. So much for privacy. Mara said family services requested she attend this portion. Of course they did. Senna took the chair beside Lena. Though took the chair meant she lowered herself onto a reinforced platform that made normal furniture seem theoretical. The translator at her collar lit. You refuse my son? Lena winced. That is an impressively dangerous way to phrase it. Senna's cheek fans opened. I refuse a special assignment that makes him responsible for proving adults correct. Senna watched her. He knows you. I know he seeks you sometimes. I know he leaves you. Yes. He returns family. Yes. Senna lowered her head slightly. Clear-side. The translator repeated the term unchanged. Lena looked at Mireille. Mireille looked at the family liaison. The liaison said, the closest functional translation is not kinship. Excellent start, Lena said. It is an outside family person near whom a juvenile does not need to defend competing roots. Lena stopped smiling. The liaison continued. A clear side may be approached, ignored, left, revisited, or included in movement. The relationship has social value because it does not obstruct family return. Senna touched her own chest, then pointed toward the unseen family wing. Family remains first path, then she pointed at Lena. Clear side does not close second path. Lena thought of Pebble leaving the badge in her lap and immediately going back to Senna. Not a transfer, not a claim, a path left open. That's Lena began, her voice failed. She cleared her throat. That's very inconveniently nice. Senna's cheek fans spread fully. Murray looked down at the incident file, perhaps giving Lena the privacy of pretending she had not heard the wobble. The academy could have ended there. It did not. Merat wanted one final functional check before changing the Thalen reassessment standard. Lena refused to let it involve calling Pebble. Senna refused food lures. Family services refused separation. Facilities refused to reopen the old mirrored room before modifications. For once, everyone's refusal made the plan better. Rookglass had already installed matte privacy shades along the west half of the North Family Junction. The east route still passed one older reflective partition scheduled for replacement the following week. The academy did not place Lena at either route. She sat at a records desk 40 feet away, behind a low divider entering supply numbers. No badge, no scarf signal, no command, no food, no handler stationed as a target. Families would simply finish evening recreation and walk home as usual. If nothing happens, Lena asked. Murray stood beside the observer console. Then nothing happens. That might be my favorite protocol. The first family crossed without incident, not the Lenry. 2 Orbian juveniles hurried through the junction and vanished toward their wing. Then Senna appeared. Pebble walked beside her. 3 younger Thalinri followed. Lena kept her eyes on the supply tablet until movement entered her peripheral vision. Pebble reached the junction. The matte route lay left. The reflective route lay right. No one indicated either one. Pebble looked right. His ears tightened. He looked left. His cheek fans loosened. Then he walked left. One younger cub followed him. The second paused near the junction, saw the black panel to the right, and stepped left after the first. The third cub had been wrestling a fabric strap and appeared not to care about architecture, science, or anyone's professional reputation. Senna stopped. For half a second, Lena thought the whole observation might collapse into another ambiguous adult response. Senna turned her head toward the reflective route. Her shoulders rose. Then she looked left. She followed her cubs down the matte passage. Behind the observation partition, 4 staff members shifted at once. No cheering, no revelation music, just several people independently seeing the same thing. Mara said, record route choice. The family liaison replied, already recording. Facilities said, second family enters in 3 minutes. Lena looked back at her numbers. Good, Merrick glanced at her. You are not watching. I saw it. A second Thalenri family entered. 2 juveniles chose the matte route. An adolescent old enough to understand the reflection took the right passage, glanced once at the glass, and continued without reaction. That difference mattered too. The academy ran no more tests that night. It did not need a parade of cubs to turn a useful observation into theater. The following morning, the revised standard was approved. Full-height reflective surfaces would be removed or shadable in immature Thalen reassessment spaces. Incident reports would record orientation target and environmental geometry. Reflection response would not automatically cancel a threat classification, but staff would have to distinguish cause before escalating restraint when immediate safety allowed. Family observations would become admissible evidence instead of background notes. Pebble's single-hander proposal vanished from the system. Lena's general supervised custody eligibility returned. Her back pay did too. She stared at the credit notice for a long time. Possible, she told Miret later, was apparently not a dangerous word. It was the correct word. You've been saving that. Yes, Lena clipped the reactivated badge to her overshirt. The green crescent looked exactly as it had before. She expected the moment to feel larger. Instead, she had 12 betting packets to move and 1 evening schedule to learn. Her first restored rotation was with a family of small copper-furred juveniles, whose main interest in Lena was whether she could be convinced to surrender a cleaning cloth. Pebble was not assigned to her. He did not need to be. Before the new standard went live, Murray made one more change Lena had not requested. Custody revocation could no longer be entered as a single undifferentiated penalty. The system now separated immediate access suspension, employment consequence, assessment validity, and juvenile-specific restrictions. Lena read the update in the service canteen. "You split the boxes," she said when Murray passed her table. They were answering different questions. "That sounds suspiciously like growth. It sounds like record hygiene." "Of course," Murray stopped. "For clarity, your intervention will remain documented as unauthorized." Lena lifted her cup. "I would have been heartbroken to lose my criminal legacy. You were never charged with a crime. Please stop ruining this for me." Murray walked away. Lena smiled into her coffee. The change mattered anyway. Another worker could lose access during an investigation without automatically being labeled unfit for every juvenile task. A cub could receive a temporary route restriction without the record implying permanent dangerousness. Family evidence could sit beside staff evidence instead of underneath it. None of those changes belonged to Pebble alone. Lena liked that best. The Academy had finally managed to learn from one cub without turning him into a mascot for the lesson. Senna seemed to approve too. During the next family briefing, she handed Lena a white courtyard stone. Lena stared at it. "Did Pebble authorize this?" "No." "Then I'm worried. He stole 3. "Ah, restorative justice." Senna's translator hesitated, then produced a word Lena chose to interpret as laughter. Weeks passed. The Academy changed slowly, which Lena learned was the only speed institutions truly trusted. Mate shades appeared. Forms changed. Staff complained about the new target field until they became used to it. Murray remained registrar. She also became the person most likely to ask, before any juvenile review, what was it actually looking at? Senna's family continued living in North Residence. Pebble grew, not gracefully. His paws seemed to expand on a schedule his legs had not been informed about. He still stole stones. He still occasionally lost arguments with rolling objects. He still ignored Lena whenever something more interesting happened. One evening, Lena sat at the residence desk finishing a supply list. Her faded wool scarf hung over the back of the chair. The tiny stitched earth caught the soft corridor light. Across the family gallery, the new matte shade covered the wall that had once returned every body as a challenge. Pebble entered with Senna. He saw Lena. His ears lifted. He took 2 steps toward the desk. Then Senna called softly. Pebble stopped. Lena looked at him. "Your mother's waiting, Pebble." His cheek fans loosened. He turned away from Lena without hesitation. That was the answer. He crossed the gallery, circled once beside Senna, and dropped heavily onto the family mat. A few minutes later, his muzzle disappeared beneath her foreleg. Lena finished the supply list. No one photographed the moment. No one reopened the review. Her badge stayed clipped to her shirt, unremarkable. The scarf stayed on the chair. The matte wall reflected nothing at all. Pebble slept. Senna rested one broad paw across his shoulder. Lena filed the supply count and reached for the next ordinary form. Nobody needed to hold anything to prove who belonged to whom.